everyone, my name is Dillon Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director of GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast, and welcome to a brand new episode of No Streaming Required, your weekly deep dive into all the latest and greatest in the world of physical media. Welcome back. We have another jam-packed show for you this week. It is one of my favorite episodes of the month. It is when we indulge in Kino Lorber Mania. This is where we dive into all the new exciting releases from Kino Lorber, Kino Studio Classics, all their various imprints. So many titles to dig into. But also before that, I have some titles that cannot wait until another week. They are simply too exciting. We have titles from Disney, Sony, the Criterion Collection, tons and tons of titles to dig into. Actually, about 30 titles to dig into. So just a warning, this will be a lengthy one, what is new, but I will try to go through these as quickly as possible while still giving you everything you need to know about each title. But if you need a little bit more of a deep dive into any individual title, make sure to go to GeekVibesNation.com, where most of these will have a written review accompanying within a week or two of this video being released. But for the sake of your time and my dear editor, I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible. But for now, I'm just going to dive into our first title. From Lionsgate is the 4K debut of Ballerina, from the world of John Wick, Ballerina. This is the John Wick spin-off movie starring Ana de Armas, in which she plays a woman who is seeking revenge from events that happened to her as a child, where she was kind of orphaned and kind of initiated into this group of trained assassins. And then when she gets older and she's a trained ass kicker, she tries to search out the person who killed her father. So strict revenge tale. There's not a lot going on in terms of like nuance to this. It is really just like her working her way closer to her end goal. There is a little bit of lore built into this that has kind of been touched upon in previous John Wick movies, but in comparison to some of those movies, this is a little bit sparse in terms of world building. But where this really makes up for that is some really, really cool action sequences, including one with a flamethrower that is one of the more exciting sequences I've seen all year. But outside of the really cool action that you get in here, some of the storytelling elements, they're not super exciting, but overall it is a fun time. And if you like the John Wick movies, don't be too suspicious just because it's a spin-off. Don't hesitate. You can still watch this and have like a brutal, awesome good time. And you do get like John Wick in a small role in here, Keanu Reeves himself, and then Ian McShane, and one of the final performances from the late great Lance Reddick. But this is a fun time, and this is a really good 4K release from this one. We get Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos audio. The Dolby Atmos kicks ass. You got hard-hitting bass, good overhead extension for the Atmos channels. Everything is very nuanced and placed very particularly in each channel. The Dolby Vision looks very nice, strong, bold colors, no black crush, no blown highlights. Everything's dialed into the particular hue that it needs to be. And then you get some special features as well, including a making of a documentary, some featurettes, some deleted scenes. So overall, if you are a fan of the John Wick franchise, give Ballerina a spin. Because I think you'll still have quite a bit of fun with it. And it's about 40 minutes shorter than the last John Wick movie. So if you're time conscious, even though it's still over 2 hours, it's not quite as long as that one. And you'll still have a good time. So Ballerina, check it out if you just want a really good action movie with some really good set pieces. It's a fun time. Next up from Warner Brothers, we have the newest animated DC feature. It is Aztec Batman, Clash of Empires. This is kind of another take on similar to like the Batman Ninja films. This is like another take on the Batman mythos. We go back to ancient Mesoamerica, where we have another revenge tale. It pairs well with Ballerina. In this one, you have some Spanish conquistadors kind of settling some ancient lands. They end up killing some loved ones of our main hero, who has to go underground and eventually learn some ancient spiritual guidance that transforms him into kind of a Batman-esque figure in this society. I like how they build upon the, like, kind of use the cultural history and lore of the area and kind of blend in the Batman mythos within this. I think a lot of traditional Batman fans will probably be a little bit hesitant to embrace this just because DC, like with these types of movies, they're just kind of like going and doing whatever they want to do and just like experimenting a little bit, just because Batman is so it's so easy to kind of like do different like, creative things with. But I if you just know that this isn't like going to be our primary Batman moving forward, and you just have a kind of like a Elseworlds-esque take on like, oh, this is like a version of a Batman that you don't really have to think about again. It's a fun enough adventure. And there's some really cool, I like how especially they kind of tie in kind of the Joker-esque figure in this universe as well. Like that development of that character is pretty interesting as well. So while I understand being a little bit hesitant to like with just kind of different Batman interpretations, this one's pretty fun. I think it's better than the first Batman Ninja movie. I think the second Batman Ninja movie was a little bit more of an improvement. But Aztec Batman, I think it starts on a good note. And if they ever do it anymore, I would gladly watch them. But yeah, and this one, 4K with the digital code. My system flags this as Dolby Vision, but I think that might be kind of like a bug where I think this might actually be HDR10, but just saying that it has HDR, at least. I'm not sure if it's Dolby Vision, but my system kind of flags it as that. But it looks really good in HDR. It looks really nice, bold colors, crisp lines, no bleeding of the animation or anything like that. 5.1 track for the English track, lossless DTS 5.1, and then a lossy Dolby Digital 5.1 track for the Spanish language track. So compared to the Batman Ninja movies, we did end up for the 4Ks getting a lossless Japanese track for those. But the Spanish track on this one, which might be considered like the main track or whatever, it is a lossy track, and I don't think there will be any kind of replacement disc or anything like that, like happened with some of the previous Batman Ninja discs, because it is listed as Dolby Digital on the back. So I think it was intentional. But both tracks sound good, but the lossless track just kind of opens things up a little bit more, but it is in English. And the voice actors are pretty good and everything, but if you want to listen to it in Spanish, it is lossy audio. But beyond that, it looks and sounds pretty good. 2 featurettes, nothing too in-depth, but a couple brief featurettes. So if you're interested in another take on Batman, Aztec Batman, not a bad entry. Just give it a shot with a little bit of an open mind, and I think you'll still enjoy it. Now for 2 of my biggest titles in terms of excitement that I'm talking about this week from Disney. First up, we have TRON on 4K, and then the sequel, TRON Legacy, which I'll show off both of these as I go along. So for TRON, both of these movies, they were only announced on 4K officially a couple of weeks ago, and ever since then, people have been scrambling to pre-order these. They've been really hard to find. So as I talk about these, if you find yourself wanting to own these, I'm sorry if it's difficult for you to find them. I would check all of the traditional indie retailers like Orbit and Diabolic and stuff, but just keep checking Amazon, Target, Movies Unlimited, just anywhere that has these. Hopefully you can find one. If not, Disney should eventually be reprinting these. But for now, if you can get your hands on these, I think you will be pleased. This first TRON, it is the classic, very early digital animation movie of Jeff Bridges playing a computer hacker that gets into a digital world and gets into a whole kind of gladiatorial adventure. But this is a really awesome movie. The effects, of course, are dated because they were early digital effects, but they still hold up as like a really cool slice of the technology of the time. And it really works for this movie of like being inside a digital world and what we thought that could look like at the time. and how that all kind of blends with the live action footage and like to the digital world is very cool. And this has been newly remastered for the 4K release. It has been restored by Disney, so it looks better than ever. And it's in Dolby Vision, and it has a Dolby Atmos track. And I'll talk about both of those along with Tron Legacy in a little bit. But for the special features on here, you get a commentary track, deleted scenes, featurettes, music related featurettes as well. But the Tron, it has been treated well, and I'll go into that more in a second after I show off Tron Legacy, the sequel, decades later. I think we're about 15 years out from this now. I think it was around 2010 this came out. Jeff Bridges returning, Garrett Hedlund playing his son, who has to go into the digital world to try to find his father. And it's bigger. The effects are obviously more refined, but there are still some shortcomings to the special effects in terms of like the de-aging of Jeff Bridges and like the rendering of the Clue character. Some people may have heard rumblings that this new 4K release might kind of refine some of the looks of those like de-aging effects. Just based on kind of eyeballing things, I did not see any major improvements to some of the like lacking de-aging effects from the original source. I think people have kind of grown to accept them by this time, so it looks like it always has pretty much in terms of how like the characters render digitally. But some may be disappointed that they didn't refine that, but at least they didn't kind of muck it up and really kind of go like George Lucasing everything and making things kind of look really different. Directed by Joseph Kosinski, who would go on to direct Top Gun Maverick. Awesome Daft Punk score that may probably eclipse the popularity of the movie itself just because of the popularity of Daft Punk. But I think this is a very worthy sequel. It expands things very well, and I'm interested to see how they eventually progress to Tron Ares here in about a couple of weeks whenever it comes out. But this has been remastered in Dolby Vision with Dolby Atmos audio. So not as much to kind of touch up as Tron. It's just been given like a nice kind of refresh. But this looks really good. This has featurettes and some music videos and everything. Tron Legacy and Tron, like I said, in Dolby Vision. So visually, I want to start off. Both of these look fantastic. Tron, I think, is given the bigger upgrade in terms of just pure like clarity and colors and everything, just improvements overall to this source. But the Tron Legacy, it seems like a title that is built for 4K, just with all the neon and just certain visuals really stand out in 4K, and just the Dolby Vision especially enhances a lot of the colors and just looks really refined and bold. So that wide color gamut that you're working with in Dolby Vision is really, really just like bringing the most out of this movie. So both visually, both Tron movies look amazing. People may be disappointed that the original audio tracks are not included for either of these movies. You just get the Dolby Atmos tracks in the English versions. And those tracks are good. I like them. I know that there will be people who are a little bit disappointed in terms of the bass response. I don't think the bass is totally lacking. But I just know from certain kind of bass heads that I read about on forums that they are going to find this like a little bit lacking compared to what we've had before. I know on the previous releases there were complaints about maybe high-end frequencies clipping a little bit. I did not notice that as much here, but maybe in the mitigating of that, maybe the bass was lessened a little bit. And you had to kind of turn the volume up a little bit more in terms of comparing that to the original sources. So there is some good bass subwoofer response on these discs. I'm just saying, if you are people who are very particular with like thunderous bass that really needs to like kick you in the chest, you might be a little bit underwhelmed. But I think overall, looking at both of these as like upgrades compared to the Blu-ray, they are major upgrades visually, and then audio wise, it's still in a good place in my opinion, and I was very pleased. And I think the Atmos, it is rendered tastefully. It is not overwhelming in like the height channels, but I think the places that they are engaged, it works very well, especially in the Tron Legacy. But overall, I think both of these are upgrades from previous Blu-ray releases, and if you can get your hands on these, I think you will be pleased. I just know that people who just really are particular about bass, you might be just slightly disappointed. But overall, I'm excited to have both of these on 4K. It's been about 5 years since I watched both these movies, and they were a lot of fun. I liked them even more than ever on these watches. And I'm so glad that Disney has stepped up their catalog game this year. And so with Sound of Music right around the corner and Rocky Horror right after that, we're in a good spot. So keep an eye out for these getting in stock. If you can get them, they're good 4K releases and worth adding to your collection. Continuing with the 4K upgrades, we're heading over to Sony and their 4K upgrade of Krull, the classic 80s sci-fi movie. I believe it was in the 80s. But this is a movie I had not seen before, but I had always heard about. It is your kind of standard like hero's journey of an evil force coming in and kind of taking over, and our hero has to go out and find a ancient weapon in order to defeat the evil, and he kind of gains like a party to accompany him in order to try to defeat this villain. This and the weapon you can kind of see here on the 4K disc, the glaive. As a kind of like a fantasy sci-fi adventure, I had fun with this. It's not the best of the genre from this era that I've seen, but it is definitely fun, and I can understand why it has kind of a cult following. There are some shortcomings narratively that could definitely have been improved upon, but especially if you have kind of like a nostalgic love for this, I understand why, and I think even newcomers can have a lot to appreciate, especially now when we're inundated with a lot of kind of inconsistent digital effects. I really like some of the kind of the handmade things that are going on here and how they're implemented, and it's just if you love the genre, you're gonna have a fun time. Having never seen the Blu-ray before, I can just say that the 4K itself is sterling. It is Sony, and they usually do a fantastic job with their restorations. This has been given a 4K restoration from the original camera negative, and it looks terrific. No lingering scratches or damage or anything like that. Dolby Vision looks terrific in terms of color reproduction and depth. No black crush, no blown highlights, no banding. Everything looks really good. And in contrast with Disney, Sony, they give you audio options. So you get, if you're an audiophile that wants the most out of your speakers, you do have a new Dolby Atmos track, or you have a 5.1 track, or you have the original 2.0 track. So no matter what you want, there are audio options, and they all sound pretty great. So depending on if you want more on authenticity or more of a speaker workout, you have options to go on that scale. You do get a commentary track, behind the scenes featurette, and other various featurettes. So overall, if you're a fan of this film, I cannot imagine being disappointed by this release. They've really went all out as usual. As with the Tron steelbooks, this is the only way to own these movies on 4K at the moment. I know at least the Tron movies, they do have like standard versions internationally, like in Europe, that you can import. I don't think there are any standard versions of Krull anywhere else in the world right now, and it being Sony, they're a little bit inconsistent on if they are going to release a standard version. So you could eventually, you could not. Like, I still don't think we've ever got a standard slipcase Fright Night, and that was like 4 or 5 years ago. And so if you are a fan of this, it's probably worth it. Even if you don't like steelbooks, just to own this. If you are a fan, just to have it in your collection. It is a really nice steelbook. But more importantly, the audiovisual presentation is a stunner. And Sony has once again worked their magic. And yeah, really good release for this kind of cult favorite. Really glad to have it in my collection. Speaking of happy to have in my collection, we're going over to the Criterion collection, and I'm starting off with a classic from Akira Kurosawa. We have High and Low debuting on 4K. This is my first time watching this one. I know it's one of his like more higher profile titles, but I think this is perfect timing with the recent Spike Lee movie Highest to Lowest debuting on Apple TV Plus. I have not watched that yet because I was waiting to watch High and Low. And I'm glad I did, because this is a fantastic movie about a man who's kind of runs a business. He's about to make a very big financial decision to kind of fully have a controlling stake in his business, but right when this is about to happen, he gets a call that his son has been abducted. But what we soon find out is his son was playing with a friend who's the son of their chauffeur, and that child was taken. So the wrong child was taken. But what we have to deal with is if this man is going to still pay this ransom, even though it is not his son, him dealing with that moral reality, and also dealing with kind of people in his kind of atmosphere who are all kind of had their own ideas, and people trying to take over, like either kick him out of the company or him trying to use his money to take over the company. So he's either going to have a big personal success, or he will be, if he tries to save this kid, will kind of be left destitute. So it's this really kind of interesting moral quandary of what he might do and how that kind of reverberates out throughout the plot. I really love this movie. It's no big secret that Kurosawa was a great director, but just how this kind of evolves over the narrative into the different themes that you can kind of pick up on class dynamics and everything. It's perfectly rendered, great performances, some beautiful cinematography. Just everything was working on all cylinders, and this is just a real gem of a movie. And now on 4K, has been newly restored in 4K from the 35mm original camera negative in SDR, so no Dolby Vision or anything like that, but just having the new restoration in kind of its purest form. It looks fantastic. Perfect gradients, no nicks or scratches. This has been created very well. This has a 4.0 DTS 4.0 audio that sounds really great. No lacking like distortion or anything like that. Everything sounds really good. Get a commentary track, you get a documentary, you get some interviews, nice array of special features carried over from the previous Blu-ray release, which luckily I hadn't owned, so I don't have to get rid of that. I'm just now getting to add a great movie to my collection. So Criterion Collection's 4K release of High and Low, it really hits it out of the park. One that I don't believe was in their collection previously on Blu-ray, we're now upgrading to 4K, is from Jacques Audiard. It is Read My Lips. I know Jacques Audiard kind of got on more people's radar this past year when he directed Emilia Perez, which was a big Oscar player until things kind of imploded at the last minute. But I had watched several of his older films in the past, but nothing this old previously. I'd like the Sisters Brothers and stuff like that. But this one is interesting. It's about a woman who works at a kind of a construction agency, and she's a secretary who's hard of hearing. She wears hearing aids and everything, and she's able to get a assistant at one time to help her out around the office, and she ends up that assistant ends up being played by Vincent Cassel as a man who he is kind of a parolee, newly out of prison, and how their dynamic kind of evolves, and to eventually her and him kind of getting into more of a criminal field. Like, he helps her out, like, kind of getting ahead in the office environment as she's trying to make her way, from being a secretary to being more part of, like, the construction process, like, hierarchy. But then he employs her lip reading skills to try to steal some money that he knows is, like, there's, like, a kind of a heist being planned. So how these two kind of outsiders kind of come together, and how they're navigating the world in very interesting and compelling ways. I really like this movie as well. Very engaging, kept my attention the whole time. If you like kind of like a good multifaceted crime drama, definitely worth checking out. Read My Lips. This has been given a 4K restoration from the 4K restoration from the 35mm original camera negative by Pathé. It has been approved by director Jacques Audiard and the director of photography. This is presented in Dolby Vision. Looks terrific. No nicks or scratches or anything like that. Everything looks clean, but naturally filmic. All the colors are very bold and natural. Everything looks very accurate to the source. You get a DTS 5.1 soundtrack, which sounds incredible. You do get a commentary track, featurettes, interviews, deleted scenes, nice array of special features. This one, another worthy pickup from the Criterion collection. They do good work, and this is a nice release from them. Heading over for my last Criterion title, we have on Blu-ray debuting Born in Flames from director Lizzie Borden. So this is kind of a queer cult film that deserves kind of a stronger presence. Like, it's a feminist queer cult film, and it's kind of like an alternate society in which it is kind of proposed that kind of everything is kind of more in a utopic spot, but what we come to learn is that it's not really the best spot for women, and you have all these different factions of feminists, black feminists and white feminists and different kind of queer feminists, like all kinds of these factions kind of rebelling against society for like what they have boxed them into, and how they are kind of trying to there's like a faux documentary aspect to this. You get like news reports and everything about how like women who are being kicked off construction jobs and different jobs, and like it leads to kind of more of a mass unemployment of women, and how they are fighting back, trying to get their rights back, and how that all kind of bubbles over. And it's very gritty. This is shot on like 16mm. It's very fly on the wall, just really interesting guerrilla filmmaking. It says in the booklet that they believe that the 16mm original camera negatives are probably no longer existent, but the 16mm materials that they work from to create this restoration, it works very well. And yes, you will get some minor nicks here and there, and it is very kind of gritty and just very DIY, but it looks as good as I think the source should look. And the sound likewise. It's like sometimes a little kind of fuzzy a little bit, but I think that's kind of very accurate to probably how it was recorded at the time. I do think it sounds good, and it looks good, as good as it could possibly sound. So this transfer has been approved by director Lizzie Borden from the 16mm internegative, and there's some good special features on here. You get an intro from her, you get a commentary track, but maybe most importantly, you get a whole other feature from Lizzie Borden, Regrouping, which I believe was maybe her first feature film, is included as a supplement here, but it is a full feature-length film. So I always love when you get an extra film just kind of without driving up the price. I think that's awesome. So if you're a Lizzie Borden fan, you got some good content in here. Feminist rage going on, but if that doesn't bother you, which it shouldn't, you should check out Born in Flames. And I think a good one to pair with that is a new release from Strand Releasing, in the final film before I start digging into Kino. It is the 25th anniversary of Psycho Beach Party from Strand Releasing. This is one I'd never seen before. I know it was released on Blu-ray previously, but I never had that Blu-ray. But Psycho Beach Party is another kind of queer cinema stalwart from, I believe, the early 2000s. This is kind of has a John Waters-esque sensibility to it. It definitely plays on different like 50s and 60s tropes, especially the beach party movies, obviously. But you also kind of get like kind of the psycho drama and slasher films, because it is kind of taking on that beach party aesthetic. But within this community there, you see kind of an uptick in murders occurring. And at the same time, our protagonist, played by Lauren Ambrose, she is unknowing to her, starting to have like blackouts and kind of has like multiple personality type disorders going on. But she doesn't know if she is potentially murdering people, or if there's something else going on. And it's very campy. There's a lot of just kind of funny, kind of satirical things going on here. And with a pretty good cast, maybe most notably for people, you have a young Amy Adams here. And it's great to see her, but you got people like Nicholas Brendan, and Charles Bush, Thomas Gibson, lots of people in here. And yeah, very much worthy of checking out, just on the movie itself. This is the 25th anniversary edition. So what I don't know particularly is the provenance of this transfer. What I do know is whenever I learned specifically about this new kind of release coming out, it was being accompanied by a theatrical release in certain markets, and that release was reported to be from a new transfer conducted by the director. I can only assume that is the transfer that is used on this Blu-ray, but I do not know specifically if this Blu-ray is reprinting the old Blu-ray or using new transfer. I'm leaning towards it probably like having the new transfer, just by how good it looks. It's very bright, very clear, no damage or anything like that. Everything looks very nice, and how you would want a movie like this to look. I'm a little less impressed by the audio. On the back, it's listed as a DTS 5.1 track. What we actually got, according to my equipment, is a LPCM 7.1 track, which it sounded a little bit too expansive or echoey for me. It sounded like some of the sounds were kind of repeated in different channels instead of it having its own dedicated channels. So it kind of sounded a little bit echoey at times, and it was a little bit distracting, unfortunately. But there were definitely stretches where it wasn't as obvious. But I feel that if maybe it was supposed to be 5.1, it maybe would have been kind of rendered a little bit differently. But I'm not sure if this is how it's always sounded, or this just something with this new disc that it just doesn't sound super great to me. But if you get this disc, report back. Let me know if you kind of had the same problem with the audio, or if maybe it's something on my end. I don't know. But overall, looks really good, and it sounds just a little bit less impressive. You do get a commentary track, which I believe is on the previous release, and a slideshow. But overall, I think the movie itself is worth checking out if you like kind of like satirical, like John Waters-esque humor. It is not directed by John Waters, but it just kind of has that sensibility. So Psycho Beach Party from Strain Releasing. I dig this one pretty well. Going from one satirical movie to the next, I'm going to kick off our major Kino Lorber deep dive with one of the ultimate satire franchises. We have Airplane 2, the sequel, hitting 4K Ultra HD. Now, I have not seen this one in a long time, so glad to be able to finally watch this after so long in 4K. And I want to note, while you do have the original cover art, which talks about Christmas and stuff, this is in no way a Christmas movie. It was just released around Christmas theatrically, and we just retained that cover art. So it was a marketing gimmick at the time. You just don't have that within the actual movie. So just if you're looking for a Christmas movie, this isn't it. But as a sequel to Airplane, it feels very much like a rehash of Airplane in all the obvious ways. It is another airplane disaster. Well, technically not airplane. It's a space shuttle disaster, because in this one you have a new space shuttle program commencing, in which there are things that some of the people running it know are probably not in the best shape, but they need this space shuttle to go on. And then, of course, disaster hits. But it's a lot of like wordplay and sight gags and a lot of dated humor in terms of like different like sexual assault jokes and stuff like that, which aren't great. But there are some of the like double entendres and stuff are still pretty funny. But it just kind of pales in comparison to the first Airplane movie, which itself was a movie that kind of lost a little bit of its luster the last time I watched it. There are still very funny moments. But just overall, I think, and then you're lacking Leslie Nielsen in this one, but you have Robert Hayes and Julia Haggerty back, Lloyd Bridges. You got the addition of William Shatner. So yeah, overall, it's a decent kind of like parody movie and everything. But it just has a lot of the same jokes or joke styles as the first movie. So it just doesn't feel as fresh as that one. But the 4K release itself, I was pretty impressed by. 4K scan of the 35mm original camera and negative in Dolby Vision with 5.1 and 2.0 audio. Everything looks pretty solid in terms of like the Dolby Vision has really nice colors. And the encoding doesn't seem too bad on this one. There are some that are going to be less impressive because we are talking about Kino and their encodes could be a little bit inconsistent. This one I didn't have as much of an issue with. Maybe things that could definitely be improved, but overall a pretty solid release. And then the Blu-rays are derived from the same remaster if you're interested in that. You got 2 commentary tracks and a trailer. So overall, if you're a fan of these movies, this is the best release of Airplane 2 on the market. And I think Kino's done a pretty nice job with it. To go along with this, I'm going to be talking about 4 movies, and these are not satires. These are what Airplane was satirizing, and we have the original Airport. We have its sequel, Airport 1975. We have the next sequel, Airport 77, and then the final one, the Concorde, Airport 79. So I'll show all these off. I've seen the Airplane movies quite a bit over my lifetime, but I'd never seen any of these airport movies, so I never knew exactly the specific movies that they were satirizing. So it was interesting to finally get to watch these in such quality. Airport, for those who don't know, this was a Best Picture nominee, and it actually won some Oscars for some of the performances and everything. What these movies are especially good at is like getting a lot of really famous people in one movie and kind of just letting them kind of guide your attention. But here you got like Burt Lancaster, Dean Martin, Van Heflin, George Kennedy, Jacqueline Bisset, Gene Seberg, Maureen Stapleton. Lots of good people in here for this first one, which leans more to like kind of a melodrama compared to some of like the exciting action of the subsequent sequels. But I still love a good melodrama, so I didn't mind the original Airport by any means. And I thought it was a lot of fun. The second one, arguably the most kind of action-packed. You have Charlton Heston here coming on board along with a good amount of stars, including Myrna Loy, Helen Reddy, Dana Andrews, Gloria Swanson in one of her final film roles. And then George Kennedy is returning. George Kennedy's actually in all of them. And what you come to learn is that George Kennedy, the more responsibility he gets, probably the more likely you are to experience something perilous on your journey. But I love George Kennedy, so it's good to see him in these movies and getting a paycheck throughout all four of these. This one, like, and then, but as you go along, things get even more ridiculous, especially in the Concorde, the fourth and final one. But this one, you can see kind of some water antics going on here. But you have people like Joseph Cotton, Olivia de Havilland, Darren McGavin, Christopher Lee, Lee Grant, Brenda Vaccaro. So many people in here. Jack Lemmon, Jimmy Stewart are kind of the mains. So another star-studded affair for 77. And then finally, George Kennedy is in the cockpit here. And then you see people like Robert Wagner here. And people like Alain Delon, Sylvia Crystal, Eddie Albert, Charo, Martha Ray, Cicely Tyson. So many people on this one that is pretty ridiculous. In all these movies, you have things going on with their flight, either them getting hit by passenger planes or people trying to hijack them, or all kinds of random occurrences are going on in terms of them trying to stay in the air and deal with whatever madness befalls them. All these are pretty entertaining in their own right, but especially as you get more towards like the Concorde, they are patently ridiculous, so you either have to turn your brain off and accept them, or just some people obviously just like maybe like only one or two of these, but there are benefits I think to each of them that make them still worth a watch. For these four movies, they are handled pretty similarly. The first Airport movie was a 4K scan of the 35mm interpositive. The big thing with Airport is, and I think some people will be disappointed, is this was originally, I believe, exhibited in 70mm. So some people will be disappointed that the 70mm version was not the one that was restored. I know that is a much more expensive process, and I just don't think it was financially feasible for Universal to kind of go through that. I know a similar thing happened with Far and Away last year with Shout Studios. So while I understand people's disappointment there, I think there's still an upgrade to be had with this 4K scanner, the 35mm interpositive, which does provide a 5.1 and 2.0 track. Which is the other three movies, 75, 77, and 79. They are 4K scans of the 35mm original camera negatives. All of those are in Dolby Vision with 5.1 and 2.0 audio. I think all these look pretty great. In terms of color, especially with the Dolby Vision, bright colors, everything's dialed in pretty well. There are some minor encoding things that could be refined and everything. But overall, I think most people will be kind of pretty happy with the upgrades here. With most Kino audio tracks, I'm never really sure if we're getting the original 2.0 audio. I'm not as good about determining if something is like a fold down or anything like that. But overall, I think each of these sounded pretty good in terms of the audio. And each movie gets a commentary track and trailer. So you get some new special features, audio-visual bump. Overall, these four movies, I think they are good additions to the 4K lineup. One thing I do want to note, so as you can see, they are available separately. There's also a collection with all four movies in one collection with like maybe a booklet exclusive to that is coming out. My one hesitancy with that, I don't have it in yet, but from what I can tell from the pictures, it looks like those have cardboard holders for the disc that you slide in and out. And given that 4K discs are so sensitive, I personally wouldn't risk it and for getting the collection just because I would be afraid my disc would be scratched and maybe become unplayable over time. So I'm going to stick with the individual releases. But if you want something that's more shelf friendly, or you're more confident that you're not going to scratch your disc as much, then there is a four movie collection coming out that was just delayed about a month longer than these. Because they had to change the artwork and stuff for some reason. But that will be out a little bit after these hit shelves. But if you're a fan of the franchise, they have been treated well by Kino, and I think overall you will be pleased. Another major release from Kino that I know that they've were made a lot of fans happy with the announcement. We have the long awaited, but people thought would never come to 4K, Night of the Juggler. Here you have James Brolin, very similar to High and Low I was talking about earlier, but from a different perspective. As a man whose young daughter is kidnapped by a kidnapper who thinks that he is kidnapping the daughter of a very rich person. So while High and Low, you were from the perspective mostly of the rich person. From here, you're from the perspective of the kind of more working class man whose daughter has been kidnapped. In this movie, working his ass off to try to get the person who took his kid. And there's a lot of obstacles in his way in terms like very ineffectual police, and just like living in New York and just like all the kind of obstacles that one faces on any day, just trying to make it through the urban sprawl. But this is a lot of fun, very like gritty, very action. Like there is a chase sequence kind of near to the beginning of this movie whenever the girl first gets taken. And James Brolin is trying to run the car down and then like gets into a taxi that is played by a taxi driver played by Mandy Patinkin. That's really like that goes on for a while, and then that he goes on foot for a while, and then he like keeps like kind of escalating in terms of like him trying to reach his daughter and this guy who's kidnapped her. And it's an insane chase sequence. It's probably the best part of the movie, but the movie continues to be entertaining. And overall, I understand now that I've seen it why people were so excited about this. So if you like gritty 70s movies, definitely check this one out, even though it was in 1980, but like it has a 70s kind of feel coming right at the 1980. You got a 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative in Dolby Vision, 5.1 and 2.0 audio. For the most part, this 4K restoration is very impressive. It looks really nice and clean, no nicks or scratches. Encoding, maybe once again, could be a little bit more refined, but it's not one of their more egregious foul-ups. Maybe just minor things here and there. But this is a very filmic, gritty movie, and it kind of keeps that authenticity. The major issue on this release is there's about a 15-second chunk of the movie where a shot is repeated from like you see a shot and then 15 or like a little bit later, like 20 seconds later, you'll see the same shot repeated while the audio is still going. It doesn't match what is happening on screen. Some people may not notice it. It didn't quite stand out the first time that I watched it because my brain didn't kind of comprehend what was going on. But then I eventually realized and saw what was happening. Similar things have happened with like the release of The Cell from Arrow Video or 12 Monkeys from Arrow Video. But it is only about 15 seconds or so that kind of gets repeated, and it kind of blends pretty well into the material. But it is a screw up, and from all the indications right now, it does not seem like Kino is interested in. They've acknowledged the issue, but I don't think they're going to do a replacement program just because of the cost associated with that. So do with that information as you will. But I will also tell you that Night of the Juggler is also being released on 4K overseas by Radiance Films. And anyone who watches my show regularly knows that Radiance Films is near and dear to my heart. And they have said that they are planning to make sure that their release corrects this error. So if you are very against any kind of like minor hiccup in the transfer in terms of a repeating shot, probably need to go with Radiance. But otherwise, this Kino is pretty good and will probably be a little bit less expensive, but overall you do what's right for you. But this movie or this release has a commentary track, 2 interviews including one with James Brolin, and a featurette. So especially if that shot wasn't incorrect, I would be much higher on this, but even still, it is a good release from Kino, and a very worthy movie of watching if you're a fan of like gritty like crime films. It's a fun one. Just a few years later, in 1983, we would have from Paramount was releasing The Lords of Discipline, and now Kino is releasing it on 4K. This tale starring David Keith as a member of a kind of military academy where at the beginning of the film there is an African-American enlistee who comes into the base, and certain members start to really kind of like torture him and really kind of make him feel out of place. And then there's also other members of the base that are really being picked on and everything, and you start to soon learn that there's more of like a secret society going on underneath that are really just being cruel to certain members. And how far this leads up the food chain, you really start to figure out. But David Keith is our kind of protagonist who is like leading the charge of like figuring out the secrets behind this military academy and what can be done, if anything, to the powers that be. And overall, it's very entertaining drama. I liked it quite a bit. It's very harrowing. Maybe not as like ruthless as something like Full Metal Jacket during its like first half, but overall, it is a pretty solid drama. And I was quite entertained by it. This has been given a 4K scan of 35mm camera negative in Dolby Vision. The transfer itself, you can tell, is very good in terms of like bright colors, deep colors, in terms of like there's a lot of like foliage around that looks nice. Some of the uniforms and stuff, some of the colors on that stand out. And everything looks pretty nice in terms of like no damage and everything. Where it kind of disappoints a little bit more is the encoding on this one is especially not great. It is very noisy, and it's just not quite to the level we want from our 4K presentations. So that's a little bit disappointing. I long for the days where Kino from like 3 or 4 years ago really like had solid encoding, and you could really trust on them, and you didn't have to be a person who was kind of more had to like check out reviews or like word of mouth of like how things were on a disc by disc basis. Even then, I'm not sure if this will be released by anyone else. So if you do like the movie, it's still very much a watchable release, but I just think it could be one that could be improved. But not quite their best effort. You do get an audio commentary track, an interview with David Keith, and an interview with the director that's pretty lengthy. If you're interested in the movie, the movie itself is good. The 4K is decent, but it could be better with a little bit more gentle handling of the encode. But Lords of Discipline, worth a watch. Next up, we have a film I've talked about on this show before, but in a different context. We have the sequel to Chinatown, directed by Jack Nicholson, The Two Jakes. So I talked about this movie whenever the Chinatown 4K debuted, because The Two Jakes was included in that package, the original package, as a Blu-ray bonus disc, the original just bare bones Two Jakes. But now you can own The Two Jakes on 4K with some special features. And watching this again, I can appreciate it even a little bit more than my watch with that on Chinatown, just because I can understand it's kind of its own thing. It is Jack Nicholson trying to continue with this character years later, has some connections to the original movie, but they're just Jake getting into like a more kind of labyrinth of corruption and everything happening, where a simple kind of case with Harvey Keitel having a wife who's potentially having an affair, how that spirals out into different kind of claims of like land deals and oil rights and all kinds of like mysteries that kind of connect to Jake's past. All stuff is going on here. It is not as masterful by any means as Chinatown, But I've seen some people talk about the two Jakes like it's like a big failure, and I still think it's quite an entertaining movie if you're just not comparing it directly to Chinatown. It definitely has its merits. And I'm glad to have it on 4K because it has been given a 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative. It looks much better than that old Blu-ray from Paramount for sure. But once again, this is another instance where the encoding is doing it no favors. You will see a lot of digital noise and everything, which is a shame because you can see so much promise within the transfer itself in Dolby Vision. The Dolby Vision does help out with some like avoiding Black Crush and the stylistic look of this movie specifically. But once again, the encoding is just kind of a little bit disappointing. 5.1 and 2.0 audio. Commentary track, 3 interviews, 2 new interviews, 1 older interview. So overall, decent release for two Jakes, but it could have been fantastic with a little bit more care put towards it. Stepping away from the world of 4K for a little bit, we're going over to the Blu-ray release of Father Brown Detective. And here we have a crime-solving priest in which there is a kind of a notorious thief out trying to steal something from the cross that's in the church of this priest, but he is at the same time trying to kind of save the soul of this criminal who's like trying to do this for love, and there's all kinds of stuff going on like mystery and redemption, all kinds of stuff going on within this general framework. And overall, I found it entertaining. This is from 1934, and no major like stars. I mean, Paul Lucas is fairly known for the time, but it's an hour and 8 minutes. Nothing overly like complex, but for the time you're spending with it, if you're a fan of classic Hollywood, it does its job and it's entertaining. It does appear to be from a little bit of an older master. You will see plenty of specs and everything. It's a decent transfer, but if you compare it to something like some of the work we've seen from the Warner Archive, you'll just know that it's not like pristine, but it's good enough. And the audio track, a little bit of age to it because it is from the 30s, but overall decent enough as well. You get a commentary track. So if you like kind of a mystery comedy, Father Brown Detective, worth checking out. Going more international from Kino Classics, we have Maedchen in Uniform, but I don't really know the meaning of this title. I know the character's name in the movie played by Romy Schneider is Manuela. So if there's more to this title, I'm not sure exactly what that's on about. But here you have girls in a boarding school that's kind of run very militaristically. If you've ever seen Matilda and Mrs. Trunchbull, it's a very similar situation where like basically the headmistress of this academy hates the children in terms of like she believes in like ruling with discipline, and she is like what will put up with no funny business. But there is one teacher who really kind of like cares for the girls and really tries to make sure that they know that they are loved and tries to guide them from a place of love. But when Romy Schneider's character, who is like lost her parents, is new to this school, she's trying to adapt. But in a much different vein than Matilda, this young girl she's starting to experience her sexual awakening when she comes to school, and the care and love that she gets from this teacher starts to swirl around in her brain, and she starts to kind of more turn it into more of a romantic thing in her head rather than more of a maternal thing, and how that kind of evolves within this kind of very rigid disciplinarian society. Overall, I found this very entertaining. I've mostly seen Romy Schneider as a little bit of an older actress, but I've always been impressed by her, and she does a good job here. Lily Palmer is also pretty great. Seems to be from an older master. It's very noisy at points and like kind of like a little bit mushy grain. But the film itself is good, and I think it's entertaining. commentary track, but no other special features. If you're a fan of these performers, it's worth checking out. Wish it had been given a little bit more of a refresh, but overall, it's decent enough. Similar situation from 1931. We have Huckleberry Finn. This kind of follows up a version of Tom Sawyer that was very successful for Paramount at this time. It has a lot of the same people in it. So we have Jackie Coogan, Mitzi Green, Jackie Searle. So this is a loose telling of Huckleberry Finn that weaves in some Tom Sawyer stuff more. And so you have them sailing down the river and trying to save their friend from being falsely framed for a crime. You have abusive parents. You have con men trying to pull one over on the young boys. You have a lot of stuff going on here. But overall, I like this pretty well. It's a cool hour and 20 minutes. This is more like definitely from like a youth oriented perspective, but I think it's mature in the right spots as well. So if you like the story, I think this is pretty decent. It might ham up the youth performers a little bit, but overall decent enough. Seems to be from an older master as well. So you get specs and vertical lines and all kinds of stuff popping up to remind you that you're watching a movie that is nearing 100 years old. But overall, it's definitely watchable, but it definitely has some age to it. A commentary track with this one and no other special features. But if you're a fan of the story, decent enough adaptation of it. Also from Kino from 1940, we have French Without Tears. So this is a movie, very breezy movie in which it takes place at another kind of language boarding academy in which people go to like immerse themselves in language and learn. It's a French language school, and then the sister of one of the students comes and really starts kind of like basically flirting with a bunch of the guys there and leading them on to believe that like she might love them, and it kind of creates a bunch of chaos within this kind of little school community. But then like her eventual kind of connection with Ray Milland's character, a lot of just kind of like class / like social commentary, satire stuff going on here. This is only an hour and 7 minutes, so definitely not a lot of like filler on this one, but overall decent enough movie. Didn't like blow me away or anything, but for the time and just kind of all the stuff that was going on, entertaining enough. Especially if you like the characters like Ray Milland. It's good to see him in the kind of an earlier role. Seems to be an older master. Definitely have vertical lines and specks of damage and everything like that. You do get a commentary track, but overall fine release. Nothing too amazing, but if you're interested in these performers, French Without Tears, worth checking out. Next up, we have another comedy from Kino Studio Classics. Peter Sellers in The Wrong Arm of the Law. Here we have Peter Sellers as like a master thief criminal who leads like a posse of other criminals in kind of like committing the crimes in the city. He's kind of responsible for most of the crime in the city, but then he finds himself starting to be more a victim of the police intercepting his crimes. And he soon starts to learn that these are not actual police, but people who are dressed as police who are kind of like taking them for a ride, and how he has to actually work with the real police in order to try to potentially take down these bandits and everything. So a lot of like shady comedic dealings and funny scenarios happening here. Peter Sellers is usually always great, and this is a good role for him. It's pretty amusing. There's a lot of like underhanded dealings and like comedic, like there's a beleaguered like police captain who's always getting into different scenarios that goes very wrong for him, and it's always pretty funny. And Peter Sellers is very amusing and sly in his portrayal. Comes from a 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative. It holds up very well. I liked how this looked. No major damage. Everything is not quite colorful, but nothing like hyper saturated or anything like that. Everything looks consistent. Has a commentary track and an interview. Overall, Wrong Arm of the Law. Pretty good comedy. If you like Peter Sellers, this is an easy pickup for you. Also debuting on Blu-ray, we have from 1947, Dear Ruth, with William Holden and Joan Caulfield. In this one, you have a young high school girl who is very kind of like progressive, and she is trying to do her part for the men overseas during wartime, and she writes forms a connection with one of the soldiers by writing him letters, but she kind of she signs her older sister's name and stuff. So unbeknownst to her, this soldier gets some leave and comes back to the States looking for this girl that he's really formed a connection over through letters, only to arrive and the older sister, who has just gotten engaged to someone else. There's suddenly this man here who has his eyes on her to marry her, but she has no idea who this man is because no one knew that this high school girl was writing letters in her name. So it is the journey of this older sister, kind of like not wanting to break the spirit of this soldier, so kind of playing along, but through a really amusing way in which she's trying to like keep up with the lies that her sister told, and also trying to make her fiance not be so overly jealous to the point that he will also break the charade. So there's a lot of stuff going on. While she might actually develop feelings for this man, despite being in like a potential marriage herself soon. So there's a lot of like relationship dynamics that if I was the fiance of this woman and all the stuff that he is asked to do, I would have like just walked away. I was like, this is too much. But he puts up with a lot, and just how that eventually works out for him, you'll have to see for yourself. But I thought this was funny. It was cute and amusing. William Holden does a good job. And just everyone, I think, is really doing a nice job in this one. Seems to be from an older master, not overly tattered or anything like that. Everything looks pretty clear. There's just some small signs of like subtle signs of wear and tear here and there. But overall, pretty solid release. Has a commentary track. So if you're a classic film fan, this one, it's one of the better ones I'm talking about on Blu-ray. And definitely worth checking out if you like kind of like a breezy watch. If you want a good laugh, I quite like the 80s comedy Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, with Burt Reynolds and Dolly Parton. This one, you have Dolly Parton as the proprietor of a house full of sex workers. In their it's kind of like renowned around town. It's been there for decades until one day a character played by Dom DeLuise, who is a television personality, seeks to kind of like use the media to shut this whorehouse down, and Burt Reynolds has to put up a fight along with Dolly Parton to ensure that doesn't happen. There's a lot of weird zany humor in this, but I quite enjoyed it. Despite with this title, it's not overly overly sexual. Like there's a lot of women in lingerie and everything, and you will see like a little bit of nudity here and there. But overall, it's kind of like chaste in its kind of horniness. And Dolly Parton's great. She has a great comedic presence on screen as always, and I'd only seen this for the first time maybe like 5 years ago or so, and it still holds up. This is where I first believe I heard Hard Candy Christmas, which is a great song. There's a lot of good songs in this one. Just a real rip-roaring time for Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. I'd never owned this before, but I'm glad to own it. I love this original cover art on here. And this comes from a 2K scan of the 35mm Intra Positive. it would have been nice to get this on 4K, like a full 4K scan and everything. But overall, it does look very nice. I've never owned this on Blu-ray before. I'm not sure if this was one of the Universal Blu-rays that like had like been slathered with DNR or anything. Since I never owned it, I don't know. But I know this Blu-ray looks really good. Yeah, 2 commentary tracks, a making of, and some outtakes. Overall, if you don't own this, definitely worth adding to your collection. It's a fun one and worth checking out. Another one from Kino is from Woody Allen, the comedy Scoop with Scarlett Johansson and Hugh Jackman and Ian McShane. This was during 2000s Woody Allen, where he was kind of shaking things up a little bit. He had like this and Match Point also with Scarlett Johansson, and a bunch of like him trying a little bit of different things. Scoop is kind of like a murder supernatural comedy. Scarlett Johansson playing a reporter who gets a tip from the afterlife that there may she gets the hint of a potential murder suspect, and how she goes about trying to confirm if this person is a murderer or not. She has to team up with Woody Allen's magician character to try to kind of like get the scheme done. Overall, it's a decent comedy. I like understand people who can no longer watch Woody Allen movies for good reason. I can still watch his movie despite like loathing him as a person. I've been seeing a trend of anytime I like take down someone who's obviously bad, like saying that they are not a good person on the show, I always get people coming at me in the comments saying, like, defending these people. If you want to defend Woody Allen, go for it. But I just think he's a trash person, and so feel free to pop off about how you think he's a great person. But back to the movie, I think he's a horrible person, but the movie itself is pretty decent, and I still watch his movies. The Blu-ray is Kino has noted that this particular movie is a little bit different than some of their movies licensing wise, and it won't be around for a long time. So if you are interested, this hasn't had a Blu-ray release domestically before. You will probably want to scoop this up before it goes out of print, because I don't think it'll be around for like 5 or 6 years or anything like that. I think it might be like a shorter licensing term. Do with that as you will. This has not been given a new restoration. It seems to be from an older scan that's just been slapped on a Blu-ray. So as such, it's a little bit soft in places. No major damage. It's just not very crisp as an image. But I think, considering it is a Woody Allen movie, and no one seems very game to be remastering a lot of them or releasing new, releasing or re-releasing his movies. If you want it on Blu-ray, this is probably the best you're going to get. It's a fine watch transfer-wise. It's not like crisp and clear and amazing. And also similar to other Woody Allen movies, not a lot of special features. You only have a trailer. So bare bones pretty much, and a dated transfer. But if you want it on Blu-ray, this is the way to own it from Kino. Pick it up sooner rather than later if you are interested, just so you don't miss out. Next up, we have a 2-pack of movies that are also available individually from Kino Lorber if you only prefer one over the other. We have Smoke and Blue in the Face. So both movies, each on their own disc. From Wayne Wang, the director. Smoke. Both of these movies involve a like smoke/cigar shop where Harvey Keitel works at, and him kind of interacting with a colorful array of people who come in and just, like in the first movie, which is the better of the two, Smoke, like William Hurt's a main character. You got Stockard Channing, Giancarlo Esposito, Ashley Judd, Forrest Whitaker, and Harold Perrineau Jr. is someone that William Hurt's character gets involved with and stuff. And their dynamic is interesting, but this is just a movie, a lot of just like people having interesting conversations in like a familiar place and everything. But this one sprawls out a little bit more than Blue in the Face. Blue in the Face takes that and From what I could tell about the production, this was like they realized that they had like a little bit more money and time. So at the end of the production of Smoke, they just like for like 5 days just shot with what they had and created a whole second movie that isn't as narratively as interesting, but you just have a bunch of people around the shop who are just like having mundane conversations, like not mundane, but like just like regular conversations that are fairly interesting. It's just not as like cohesive and thought out as Smoke. But in this one, you have Harvey Keitel returning along with Giancarlo Esposito, but then you have people like Lily Tomlin, Lou Reed, Roseanne, Michael J. Fox, Jim Jarmusch, Malik Yoba, Mira Sorvino. But Blue in the Face is definitely more just kind of like hangout, chatty movie. There's more narrative depth to Smoke. And if you can only watch one, definitely watch Smoke. But both are interesting in their own way, but Smoke is definitely a lot better. But both of these I found very interesting, and I love a talky dramedy, so definitely right in my wheelhouse. Smoke was given a 2K restoration. Blue in the Face was given a 4K restoration. Both of these look quite nice. Smoke is given 2 interviews, behind the scenes featurette, and a press conference from the Berlin Film Festival. Blue in the Face, also 2 interviews and an archival conversation with Lou Reed. So whether you want these individually or as a 2-pack, you have options, but definitely check out Smoke. But Blue in the Face is interesting as well. Even if just to see Madonna have be a woman who does singing telegrams for a scene. So yeah, reason enough to check out these movies, Smoke and Blue in the Face on Blu-ray. Going over to the documentary space from Kino Lorber, we have Blur to the End, documenting the group Blur, the musical group Blur, as they get together for a new album and tour and everything leading up to playing Wembley Stadium. I personally have not listened to a lot of Blur in the past. Like I know like song 2 and everything, and I believe I had their album with that song on it, but they have never been a band that I like really dove deep into. I am a fan of some of like Damon Albarn's like either solo stuff or his work with Gorillaz. That's more so my speed, but Blur just hasn't been a band that I've ever really dug into. But despite that, I really enjoyed this movie. I love like a movie that deals with the process of creating music while also kind of filling in the background of the band a little bit and everything. But it is fascinating to me. I like a good documentary, and this definitely delivered. And yeah, if you like such movies and you like Blur, or if you just like want to experience a new band, worth checking out. Looks good on Blu-ray. It has a very, very valuable special feature. As you can see here, it includes the Blur Live at Wembley Stadium film, which is itself like 2 hours long, 2 hours and 12 minutes long, as a supplemental feature. So that's incredible. Just to have that a whole concert as well. So you're basically getting two films for the price of one here. So if you're a Blur fan, this is undeniable. But even if you're not, there's a lot here that's worth checking out. Even if you're just like interested in exploring new music, Blur to the End, definitely worth checking out. From Kino Classics, we have Il Dono, The Gift. This is a Italian movie, which is almost no dialogue. It explores Colonia. The director is kind of like showing this kind of community that used to be teeming with people, but people have like been kind of leaving in droves until it's down to, at the time of this filming, there's only a couple hundred people who lived in the community. And a lot of this is just kind of like static camera shots of just kind of more mundane things around this community, like dealing with the like livestock or people trying to like like flirt with other people or just like have a cigarette and just like seeing them just kind of take in the land. You have to be very patient for this movie. There's not a lot that actually goes on. Like I said, there's not really much in the way of dialogue at all. It is more of a meditative movie and just seeing like slice of life of this community. I liked it all right. I needed a little bit more to kind of get me invested, but I understand the beauty within this structure. It just didn't quite hit with me as much. But if you like kind of more of like a slice of life documentary portrait of a community, Il Dono will probably work for you a little bit better. It has been given a new 4K restoration from the original camera negative, supervised by the director. You have a trailer, but nothing else in terms of special features. So really good Blu-ray release of this one. Just not completely sold on the movie itself for me. Finishing off with a couple of Blu-ray releases. First off, from Walter Hill, we have Undisputed. Here we have one of the last kind of major Walter Hill movies that got kind of like more of a prominent release. Wesley Snipes and Ving Rhames, prison boxing drama. Wesley Snipes is a man who's been kind of reigning in prison as like this boxing legend for like a decade. Ving Rhames has been a boxing legend outside in the real world until he gets kind of locked up himself. And from his perspective, he says they are false charges. But either way, he becomes a real terror in like prison, trying to strike fear and really big dogging people in prison by saying like he's like a world champion boxer. But he kind of like calls out Wesley Snipes' character, and it kind of leads up to this epic boxing confrontation. Ving Rhames' character is very difficult to root for in this one. I found myself personally rooting for Wesley Snipes. But it's a very interesting movie. And if you like a good boxing drama, I think this will do it for you. I was very entertained throughout. And this has been given a 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative in Dolby Vision. This one holds up pretty well. I didn't notice a lot of major encoding shortcomings. Overall, I liked what I saw, and nothing looked too mushy or overly noisy or anything like that. Black levels seem to be pretty tight, hold together well. No major deficiencies. Has a commentary track, interviews, archival featurettes. Overall, if you've been waiting for Undisputed to have a proper release, I think this one will do it for you. And then finally, on 4K, a movie that I was so stoked whenever this came out in theaters, and it was nice to revisit. From 2003, The Rundown with The Rock, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Seann William Scott, Rosario Dawson, and Christopher Walken. So The Rock plays a bounty hunter who doesn't really want to be a bounty hunter, but he kind of owes a person. He has to go get this man's son, played by Seann William Scott, but out in kind of this jungle. But he ends up getting kind of caught up in this adventure, trying to find a very valuable object, and along the lines, just like not quite like buddy cop, but like kind of a buddy drama, like opposites attract, and they're kind of like developing dynamic over this movie. It's like they hate each other, but they end up kind of becoming kind of like having like a begrudging respect for one another, all that kind of stuff. But jungle action, adventure, fun. I think it's a pretty fun movie. Some good action sequences. It's very by the numbers, but if you're kind of like want kind of that brainless time, you can do worse with The Rundown. It's a Peter Berg film. I like Peter Berg's directing, and this delivers the action you want and some good comedic one-liners. A quick cameo from Arnold Schwarzenegger. It has it all. So Rundown, still a fun movie 20 plus years later. This is 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative in Dolby Vision. Similar to Undisputed, no major disappointments in terms of encoding. I think this looked quite nice. Good textures. Everything holds up pretty well in terms like this is in the jungle, so you have a lot of greenery. Everything looks really nice in Dolby Vision in terms of the color gamut. You get 3 commentary tracks, 1 new and 2 archival. You get featurettes, you get deleted scenes. Overall, if you're a fan of the rundown, I think you'll be pleased with this 4K debut. It holds up pretty well. And that is my show. For those who have stuck with me, thank you. I hope you found something you have liked. If so, let me know in the comments what you're most interested to check out. If you want me to talk about something in the future, please chime in with that as well. I always love your recommendations. Make sure to share this with anyone that you know loves physical media. I always love getting new viewers to the show. And subscribe. Make sure you don't miss an episode. I do one of these every week. And I'm always happy to do so. And I will be back again next week with another fresh batch of titles. Until then, enjoy these movies.
The Saturday movie will continue after these messages.
Daddy's little girl is missing.
How are you gonna find her?
Somebody took her. Somebody's gonna pay.
You want to see your kid alive again?
Daddy will make sure of that.
Daddy! You're giving me $1 million, you'll never see your kid again.
James Brolin, a broadcast premiere. Night of the Juggler.
Sunday night at 6, only on Channel 11.